name is Karen Van Gorder.
I'm Dave Peterson.
Steve George.
And Diana Jackson.
Pamela Michalik.
So the first question that we had for you guys is, what exactly is banded tuition?
Banded tuition, it can be kind of looked at as a flat rate. So what it is if a student takes, and what we're proposing is if a student takes anywhere from 12 to 18 credit hours, they pay one set amount. And so the biggest point that I think that people are using this for is to incentivize students to take like a full load, which would be 15 credit hours. So the thought is that then you would graduate within the 4 years. But yeah, it's just basically a flat rate.
And why implement banded tuition now? Like, what is the purpose behind doing that in the next year or so?
Want to take it?
Well, at this point, of all the public institutions in the state of Indiana, IPFW and Purdue Northwest are the only two that are not on the banded tuition rate structure at this point. And the Commission of Higher Education, I believe back in 2012, 2014,
I think 2014.
2014 had strongly urged public institutions to be looking at rate structure just like this to implement in their institutions, as long as it didn't wind up being a detriment to the students, to help students graduate and be successful. And at this point, once again, we're the only two left between us and Purdue Northwest, and we'd like to be proactive in the situation rather than possibly be in a situation where maybe we might be told at some point to do it. We're going to take a look at it, and that's what this proposal is really starting to do.
What is the likelihood that banded tuition will be implemented here? It sounds like the way you're talking about it is very likely, since we are one of the only two schools left. Do you see it happening very soon, like as of next year, or?
Right now, the proposal that we have put forth is we're looking at fall of 2018. And you're right, because the commission, the Indiana Higher Ed Commission, wants, it has mentioned that and has put that out there. They obviously are wanting people to go that route, and we've had the support so far with what we've presented. I mean, there's still quite a bit of work left to do in trying to come up with what it's all going to look like. So it still has to have the executive staff approval here, but they are definitely behind it. The Purdue's president, I think, is also behind it. But it still has to go through a number of approvals before we get to that point. It still is a proposal in this stage.
And seeing that we're going to have two separate entities here on campus, we're going to have IU and Purdue, does that mean that once this gets implemented, as soon as they take over, that's going to change? Or is it going to be both of those schools respect that they're going to each have banded tuition as well?
Right, because the IU regionals went this last fall, they all implemented banded tuition. So when we implement this, then our students will be also on a banded tuition. Not necessarily the same banded rate, because those IU students will pay whatever IU's rate is, and our students will pay the rate that ours will pay. So.
And we already answered that. Cool. Okay, so what are the possible benefits for students with this banded tuition?
Well, in this proposal, actually, we're proposing a few different things. This proposal included the elimination of the distance fee for online courses. So that would be a huge benefit. Another possible benefit, early graduation. Possible degree, multiple degree options where you might double major or major minor, because you'll have a possibility of taking more hours, therefore a possibility of being able to make more linkages to those types of degrees. Possible overall reduction in student debt, when we're talking about the difference between maybe 3.5 years, 4 years versus maybe 5.5, 6 years. There's a great possibility that the reduction in student debt could be significant. And that would also give the students the opportunity possibly to get to the workforce faster, be able to get out there and get jobs as opposed to
make money instead of borrow money.
That's right. So.
And then in the PowerPoint that you guys had, I think it said something like 3,800 students would be affected, somewhere around that number. Is that correct?
And some of it will all depend on what they have currently taken. So if you took a number of online courses, this actually, the elimination of the online fee will help those students tremendously. And yeah, for the students, the way they will be affected is if you were somebody who took 12 credit hours, this banded rate currently, as we're proposing it, sits at higher than that 12 credit hour rate. So if you continue to take 12 credit hours, right, you're going to be affected in the way that you will probably end up coming out paying more per credit hour if you figured it that way. But the thought is if you actually took 15 instead of the 12, then it won't. Then you end up about where you were before. Again, as long as you hadn't taken online. If you took online, then you're better off because the online fee was 90 something a credit hour.
92, 95.
250, yeah.
So that's a huge help, I think, there. And hopefully that will help the students if they feel like they work outside of, have quite a few work hours. Hopefully then if they could pick up a course online, if they felt like they couldn't physically be here more than the 12, they could maybe pick up something online and still get in their 15 credit hours, or even take further advantage like Steve said. And if you took more and you could do some minors, or if there were any kind of certificate things that they could fit in, or anything that we might try to come up with as we move and try to figure out what this is going to look like. We're hoping that will all help in the end.
With the incentivization of taking more credit hours at a lower cost per credit hour, do you think that it might be a worry that some students will then start taking more than they can handle and will actually be a detriment to them rather than a benefit?
Well, I think what you asked is true. It could be that they take too many hours. So the band runs from 12 hours to 18 hours. So if you've been taking 9 hours and you decide you're going to take 18 hours, it's a lot of difference. So there could be a detriment. So the student has to be aware, and their advisor may look at them and say, well, you know what, you only got B's and C's last time, and you're only taking 12 hours. You may not want to take 18 just because you can for the same tuition. So it's not a panacea. It's not like, okay, we're going to charge this rate and it's going to be easy for the students. It's still work. It's still a lot of work.
Another question I had was, do you know the amount of students? Are there a significant number of students that aren't taking either 12 or less credit hours as compared to the students that are taking, say, 18 to 21, where the real benefit comes? Because I saw that it was almost a $600 or even $900 reduction in tuition costs for those students taking 18 credit hours or more. So is there a larger number of those students taking the 18 to 21 credit hours as there is compared to students taking less than 12?
And I don't have those. I don't know if they were in the PowerPoint?
It's in the PowerPoint.
Trying to even see. Actually, the numbers aren't there. The specific numbers aren't there. I'm trying to even see. It was getting closer. They were kind of coming together from where students used to be the 12 to 14 and a half credits. That we basically were looking at anything less than 15, anything 15 or more, when of a lot of the things that were in this PowerPoint, the information that was in the PowerPoint. And to me, there was a decline in the number of students that were taking the 12 to 14 and a half. Now again, some of that obviously has to do with the decline in our enrollment. But even with showing that decline, even with the decline in enrollment, while it's small, there had been a small incline in the number of students that are taking 15 plus credit hours. So hopefully this is just another incentive to get students to continue thinking in that direction.
Your question was how many students, are there more students taking more than 18 hours than there are?
The 15 to 18, yeah.
Than in the, didn't you say
12 to less.
12 or less?
Yeah.
Well, if you're
No,
under
not
12, so if you're at 11, you're still paying the same, you're doing an hourly
Per credit hour.
tuition band at that rate. So there shouldn't be any change there except for whatever
Right.
increase we have, an annual nominal increase we do each year. For those above 1821, absolutely, there's a significant savings compared to what you would currently be paying for 18 to 21, absolutely. Are the numbers anywhere similar? No, there's obviously probably less students taking 18 to 21, but the savings of those students are going to experience are going to be significant compared to what they would pay under our current structure. It would be a savings for anyone who's aggressive about their college career and can obviously academically perform doing that. This is going to be a savings, a definite win-win financially for them.
And when I look at these graphs, again, I don't have specific numbers. It looks like the students that are taking the 12 to 14 and a half, the less than 15, is around 3,500, maybe 3,600 students from looking at this, just eyeballing this. Whereas the number of students taking 15 plus was just under 3,000, maybe around 2,800 students at this, as of fall of 2016. So there's not a huge difference,
Right.
but, you know.
What are some of the drawbacks included in the banded tuition? We talked about the increase in cost for anyone at 12 hours. Aside from that, is there anything that students should be keeping in the back of their mind about this?
And I'm not sure. You guys think of any?
One of the things that we talked about is a lot of our degree programs currently are mapped for 12 credit hours. So you might be taking fall, spring, 12 and 12, and maybe you might be taking 1 and 1 over the summer or something like that. And that's something that we would have to rethink. Maybe remapping to 15 or 18 or something along those lines. We also talked about a possible drawback of financial aid and how that's dispersed for certain groups of students, whereas they may only be able to get aid for fall and spring rather than have it carry over into the summer as it currently does.
And then one other group that I know we talked about, and it's still something that we'll have to figure out what we want to do, are those people who, when this is implemented, let's say you're a senior and you only have 12, you're a senior and you're going to graduate in December and you only need 12 credit hours to graduate. Should you really have to pay for 15 if you only need the 12? So that's just something we need to consider, and how would we maybe help somebody like that, or, you know, I mean, those are the kinds of things. Or even if you have only 12 and 12 left for your entire senior year, you know, what would we want to do to try to offset that? That's just something we need to consider.
Is that the exceptions that you had mentioned in the PowerPoint? It said that one of the next steps was to determine the exceptions for the banded tuition. Is that what you had in mind with the exceptions for banded tuition, or did that include even special needs students that could never handle like 18 credit hour course load?
No, that would basically probably have been it, is what we
Yeah.
were thinking, were those that would be seniors.
That's it.
All right. And what are some steps that students can take to reap the benefits of banded tuition?
I think meeting with their advisor regularly to go over where they're at and what their plan is going to be. I think that would be a huge benefit to the students, because that will give them the opportunity to be proactive instead of reactive in these situations, but then also to allow them to move through the system at their pace, according to their completion goals. So that will kind of help them be able to take advantage where they can, and you know, if it turns out that, you know, banded tuition isn't for them, then also too that'll be identified on the front side, rather than maybe, as you mentioned, getting in over your head and saying, oh, you know, I can't do this. So.
Right, and it would help you even in mapping what you want to do if you meet with them, as far as if you have a bunch of really difficult courses you have to take one semester. If you took only 12, but then the next semester your load is a little bit lighter as far as how hard or how difficult your courses are, and you could take 18, overall it would balance out for, you know, but it's just like Steve said, you just need to make sure, we'll just need to make sure that they meet with their advisors.
And the other thing is, you have a year and a half now to, I know none of us like to hear the word save money, but if you could save some money up so you didn't have to work so much during the 18 year, is it the 19 year? Fall of
Well, it's
18, which is the.
Fall of
is-
2018.
So if you could work a lot from now till then, now till fall of 19, then you could bank some money up, then maybe you wouldn't have to work so many hours and you could take more credit hours and take advantage of the 15 or 18 at the same rate as you would pay for 12. So again, it's more forward thinking than some of us like to do, but we have the opportunity here. And that's kind of why we are trying to get this communicated out now, rather than say, oh, well, your bill's due Friday and we've made this change. You know, that's not fair. It's not fair to anybody. So we're just trying to talk to everybody that we can and explain what's going to happen, or what we think is going to happen at least.
Right. And hopefully the banded rate helps in budgeting, in the fact that this is what it's going to be. It isn't, I'm going to take 18, so now I've got to pay this much. Here's what you're going to pay for fall. Here's what you're going to pay for spring. So hopefully that helps in budgeting for your tuition.
One thing that came to mind is, why is it that we were one of the only two schools that have waited until now to start considering banded tuition? What has been preventing IPFW from taking that step?
I don't know that I could even answer that. To tell you the truth, until this last fall, most of the campuses, like all of IU regionals, had not gone to it either. So I don't know if they felt like, I don't know. I don't even want to conjecture in there why we were.
It's just the way we've always, I guess that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
And it's,
Probably, you're probably right.
and then the recommendation just came out.
In 2014.
So that's really not that long ago.
Yeah, because probably the larger schools who had implemented it much sooner. And they have students that are right there all the time. So I don't know. Yeah, that probably is.
I think part of it is we're not a traditional age student whole population, so everybody doesn't come here right from high school, take a full load, fall, spring for 4 years and are done. That's not our model. So at first it might not have thought, we might not have thought that fit us, but if it's part of our students, it still doesn't fit anybody that takes less than 12. Some schools across the country have 2 different bands, so they have kind of like a part-time band and a full-time band.
If students wanted to go, were to go anywhere to get information about this, where would you tell them to go?
Right now, we don't really have anything out there.
We're waiting till things are finalized before we put out, FAQ, and then we'll have it on our website, on IPFW's website, about banded tuition, where students can go and just look at all the different points and how it will affect them.
Are there going to be more opportunities for students to hear more about this? That you had the one student feedback session. Are there going to be anything else is there going to be anything else like that going forward, or has that phase of this proposal been through?
That particular piece, but I'm sure there'll be a lot more communication as we move through this and as we know more what it's going to look like. And just like Pam said, I think there'll be more information out there. And to tell you the truth, again, with the amount of feedback we got as far as the number of people that attended, I think that might even be better, that we get it out in some other ways than holding a session and having them attend. I think there are probably other ways to get in touch, email or any of the social media areas that we can go through.
And then when this is finalized and banded tuition is either pushed through or not, how will students know about that final decision? Will there be like a mass email sent out, or how is that? Have you thought that far ahead about how it's going to be released?
We've thought a little bit.
Yeah, we thought a little bit. We visited IUPUI, and they kind of gave us their timeline, and it was very helpful. We plan on doing some of the same things about sending out emails in advance, fee payment deadlines, letting students know about, once again, this is a reminder, banded tuition is being implemented if it's approved. And so we will be sending out multiple communications to our students.
All right. That's good. I think we're good. Do you have anything else you guys want to add to tell the students or anything like
I
that?
don't have anything. Do you have anything? Nope.
I don't think so.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time, guys.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.